Welcome to episode 27 of Why Not Read Alpha Flight with Chris and Tom, a podcast where we take your favorite series seriously. I'm your host, Chris Baker.
And I'm your other host, Tom Flynn. I'm excited to announce that Chris and I will be at the Uncanny Experience this year. We will be giving a presentation on the history of Department H and its track record vis-a-vis mutants.
Which is a polite way of saying we'll be tracing its development from a hit squad to a superhero support org to a civil rights annihilating force of destruction.
But we'll also be talking about how and why they tend to fail in their aims and what that tells us about, now.
Tom, maybe the civil rights annihilating force of destruction was really the friends we made along the way.
I do not co-sign that statement whatsoever.
Well, Excelsior Embroidery Company will also be hawking our wares there. It's a bit of a busy summer for EEC. We look forward to telling you more about that, but if you're in the St. Louis area, come check out the Punk Rock Flea Market in Tower Grove Park at the end of May. It's going to be awesome, and I'm going to have some fantastic stuff there. The best part of starting this podcast has been tapping into the Alpha Flight community, so if you are in the area for Uncanny Experience and want to come say hi, we would love to meet you.
And that's enough about us. Let's talk about Alpha Flight. We've got a couple issues for you today, and I'm sure you're just as surprised by that as we are, given our single issue focus since Mantlo took over. We are 4 issues
Four? It's only 4? It's been a hell of a week. Lemon, it's only Monday.
And they've been different than what came before, as we've gone to great lengths to discuss. There are 2 more of those rough issues for today, but next episode, it's like a switch gets flipped and the book finds its footing and consistency, and we will be on the rails for what a lot of people consider to be the good part of Mantlo's run. And if any people consider what we read to date the good part,
please email us. We'd love to hear from you.
Or don't.
No,
or don't.
No, Tom, we need engagement.
Walk into the woods, into the barren lands.
Here's the story so far. The totally human Heather Hudson has recently become more human than human, with a recreation of the electromagnetic battle armor designed by her deceased husband and Alpha Flight founder James McDonald Hudson. Taking his old codename of Vindicator, she turned to the hirsute acrobatic dwarf in a unitard, Puck, to train her in hand-to-hand combat, but was rebuffed because Puck has a lot going on right now.
Yeah, I kind of question whether we call him a dwarf anymore.
He keeps calling... Look, we're using the vernacular, Tom.
Fair enough.
Rounding out the team roster are dramatic theater kid speedster twins North Star and Aurora, Roger Box in his Box with an X armor, and the transmutator Mr. Madison Jeffries. For complicated reasons, all the mystical members of the team are off doing their own things right now. Since death has become quite a revolving door for Alpha Flight, we have a new feature to the story so far, the deceased roster. It only gets updated when a character stays dead beyond the issue they died in.
That's a very specific...
How many times have we seen members of Alpha Flight die and then come back at the end of the issue?
Oh, that's fair. That's very fair. Yeah, they do pop back up pretty regularly.
Death! The deceased roster currently consists of JMH and... Tom, take off the party hat. Secret Agent Linebacker Superhero Dr. Walter Lankowski.
For all of the faults of the beginning of the Mantlo era, it is refreshingly Walt-free.
You've got about 10 more issues, buddy.
God damn it!
But not in the way you think. Oh, I am terribly disappointed that we haven't seen more of Wong and Madison. They could be the next Molecule Man and Marcia just sitting on the couch watching F Troop. It'd be great. That's a Secret Wars joke, Tom.
Okay. On the you can't see this because it's not a video podcast, which I guess is just a video. The whole term video podcast seems insane to me. But yeah, I was staring blankly at Chris because I had no idea what that was a reference to.
Molecule Man is God.
No, I knew all those names separately. I didn't know how they came together. So that was sort of the issue. Onwards.
All right. Take it away, Tom.
Alpha Flight number 33, cover date April 1986, titled A Friend in Need. Writer is Bill Mantlo. Penciler is Sal Buscema. Inker is Jerry Teliak. Letterer is Jim Novak. You bum! Colorist is Bob Sharon. Editor is Carl Potts. And Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief.
On the cover, We see Heather in her new Vindicator suit lying on the ground with a smoking energy wound on her torso. Immediately above her stands Magneto, current leader of the X-Men, with a fist flowing with a similar energy signature to Heather's wound. Magneto is flanked by the current team of X-Men looking down at Heather, and above them are large Force ghosts of Snowbird, the Box Armor, Aurora, and Northstar. Puck is there as a Force ghost too, but he looks like a giant X-Man instead of an even gianter Alphen because he's Puck again. The corner box has a graphic announcing Marvel 25th anniversary that will appear on the next 12 covers. Also in the corner box art for this issue, it features a full figure of Aurora and the heads of the rest of the team, including Snowbird, but not Shaman or Talisman. They are emphatically not the Burn heads from before, and believe me, I know from Burn heads. I love the corner box art, Tom. It's a lost gem in modern comics.
We get several short vignettes to start before a meatier chunk of backstory that is the main course of this issue. We'll offer a quick overview of those vignettes, but we'll largely ignore them and focus on Heather's story. The issue opens with a dramatic full-page splash of a suited-up Heather flying through the sky towards the reader with a determined look on her face, doing a lot of thought bubble recapping to help jumpstart the story, concluding with, well, if I can't find anyone among my so-called teammates to tutor me in the combat skills I need to survive, I'll just have to improve my education elsewhere. Chris, a quick note. When she's flying through the air, two folks notice her, and one comments like, oh, there goes Guardian. The other says, but isn't Guardian dead? And what the hell is that about? Because I thought that wasn't public knowledge.
Yeah, because when Delphine Courtney came back, nobody knew that he had died, so she was able to just walk around wearing James's skin as a suit, you know?
Which, you know, turnabout's fair play. That's what Heather is kind of doing now.
Oh, this is messed up. It's a weird throuple again, man. It's a weird throuple.
Oh, God. However, I will say that perhaps this secret knowledge of Guardian's death is really just a Mantlo thread.
Oh, no, it's not. It's Canadian Alex Jones. It's spread through the crank AM radio guys. Like, is there a Canadian Art Bell in the 80s?
I'm sure there is.
Listeners, for those of you who don't know, Art Bell was a late night radio host in the, I believe, 80s and into the 90s. And he was like a proto Alex Jones, where like if you wanted to hear somebody talk to you about aliens and all this stuff for 3 hours while you're driving across the desolate southwest of America, Art Bell's your guy. It's back when conspiracy theories were fun and funny instead of terrifyingly fucking up our policy.
I was trying to get a nice Mantlo thread in there, but here we are.
As Heather flies over the ocean, the perspective shifts to below the water where we see Marina. Hey, you remember founding Alpha Flight member Marina? If so, it's just you and Bill Mantlo at this point. She will actually be in the next 5 issues straight, and I think that is a record for how many issues in a row Marina has appeared in Alpha Flight so far. For now, know that she is on the run from pursuers who we know to be Atuma of Atlantis. We'll be doing a whole thing on what Marina has been up to in the next episode.
Scene change to the Mackenzie District, Northwest Territory, Canada, and the sparsely furnished home shared by demigoddess of the North Snowbird and her stalwart human lover, Doug. You know, I think we need to put a little more respect on Doug's name. Our dude did pull a freaking goddess.
You're absolutely right. I still think it's funny, so we're still going to do it. But, you know, I will absolutely concede that you're right.
I just want to say, it's very funny to say Doug with that pause before it. It's hysterical. I love doing it. One of my very good friends is named Doug. I think he listens. I think he'd get a kick out of us doing that. However, I don't want it to then come across as if we were like disrespecting this, you know, mountain of a man who has somehow managed to convince Narya that hanging out on the mortal plane is more worth her time.
Okay, this mountain of a male pattern baldness man who has also pulled a goddess. You know what, Tom, you are right. We need to rethink how we respect the Doug.
Indeed. I think that might be it. I think it's the Doug.
All right, there we go. Snowbird has been popping up with some random pains and problems lately. Okay, that is understating it. It looks really bad. And apparently it got bad tonight, and the Doug called on the local doctor for help. The unnamed doctor is my favorite one-shot character after the Soldier Boy from issue number 1.
That Soldier Boy, is that the one that mouths off to Puck about letting him... yeah, that guy was great.
See? He's memorable.
Yeah.
Our examples of doctors in Alpha Flight so far have been the hyper-competent, if somewhat cold, Dr. Michael fucking Two Young Men, and Dr. Lionel Jeffries, a.k.a. Scramble the Mixed-Up Man, who wrecked Heather's shit and then said,
"It's just a prank, bro."
and no one holds it against him. What was that?
I was trying to do the Scramble voice again. I only got to do it the once. I figured I don't even know if that was the Scramble voice. I really need to create my own archive of the voices used so I can refer back.
No, we don't have that much Google Drive space.
No,
hey, folks, if you could subscribe to our Patreon, we'd love to upgrade our Google Drive space so that Tom can do things like that.
As the Doug says, "For heaven's sake, Doc, help her." Unnamed Doc says, "You're joking, eh, Corporal Thompson? You call me in during a raging blizzard to treat your girlfriend, and only when I get here do you tell me the lady in question is Snowbird, perhaps the most powerful member of Alpha Flight, and a goddess to boot. Man, I don't even know how to diagnose her when she was healthy."
While he draws something into a syringe.
"Man, I don't know what'll help. Let's see what this does. Maybe we can try it after her. I'm clearly making it up as I go along." He totally doesn't say that, but come on.
Oh, he's fantastic in his humble understanding of how out of his depth he is, combined with just enough knowledge and curiosity to be dangerous.
I would read 4 issues of Dr. Let Me Try This, just dosing people to disastrous effect. Okay. Maybe 1 issue, but I would love it. I guess that depends on the art.
Oh, yeah, absolutely depends on the art. Just dosing people. Let's see what happens.
In a previous issue, we saw a comic book in a shop, I believe in the West Edmonton Mall, that was Alpha Flight. It looked like Alpha Flight cover. I think that as part of the Canadian government Department H propaganda campaign around Alpha Flight, there absolutely are trading cards with their stats, their origins and whatnot, because this doctor knows an alarming amount about Snowbird's past, who she is, and how out of his depth he is. I would love it if there were trading cards of all the Alpha Flight members. And Marina is the most valuable one because everyone keeps getting rid of it, so there are 5 left in existence.
Given how poorly our dear pal JMH ran Department H, I would not be surprised if he was like, yeah, let's do this. This would be a great way to get kids to support us. It'll be a lot of Canadian, patriotism and all that. And nobody in the room said, hey, why are you telling the bad guys how to beat you? Isn't that one of Squirrel Girl's powers, that she has the trading cards of everybody so she can see what they're all about? That's her whole bit for a while.
You asked me these questions expecting any kind of answer.
No, it's for the listeners, Tom. They all know
enough.
that you don't know jack about shit. That's false.
Well, back to the episode.
That was rude.
The goddess half of Snowbird is quite upset.
"Insufferable mortals, how dare you attempt to stay the rage of a deity?"
As her face slips into its True Fire's form, black with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth. It's a look that seems to benefit from being kept vague and letting the reader draw their own conclusions.
This is another iconic Alpha Flight image I am curious to see in a modern motion picture format. Speaking of modern motion picture format, Tom, I have a thing. As you know, Thunderbolts comes out this weekend as of this recording. So listeners, you'll probably hear this and you'll already have seen it. But I really hope that at the end, you might not realize that there is an Alpha Flight connection to Thunderbolts, do you?
Oh, God.
Guess which one of these Thunderbolts that we're going to see in the movie ends up on Alpha Flight?
Not a single one of them makes sense. I guess maybe I know it's I would know if she ended up on Alpha Flight. I think Yelena makes because
nope. Was the least likely character of all of the Thunderbolts to go to a Canadian government sponsored team.
Is it U.S. Agent?
It is! Ring, ding, 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 ding! So, here's what I want at the end of Thunderbolts, when everything is lying in wreckage and whatnot, and everybody's split apart and whatnot. I want James MacDonald Hudson to show up and have a conversation with John Walker about how he's forming a team. And we get an amazing Nick Fury setup for JMH, which is what JMH is for Canada. That's exactly what he is. And you set it up as this super serious thing, and then we immediately get our workplace comedy of how, for all the cool that he looks like to the outsiders, if you're actually watching this, it's a shit show. And everything's falling apart around him. It's the perfect way to get the MCU in there. So here's hoping they can slip it in between now and premiere.
Two things. One, this is not a terrible idea, but given our current relationship with Canada, I don't know that Marvel and Feige really want to like piss off Canada by sending Captain America to the premier Canadian superhero team. It feels a little weird. Like how much...
Oh, not just Captain America, Temu Captain America.
Well, right. So how much, like the tariffs on that, how much it's going to cost for him to go back and forth across the border?
Well,
it's going to be
It's going to cost a hell of a lot less than a full value Captain America, I can tell you that. Even a Sam Captain America, that's going to go through the roof with the baseline once the tariffs kick in on that. A John Walker, I mean, that's pennies on the dollar compared to a Sam.
Okay, fine. Second question. I know the answer, but I need you to say it. Who's playing JMH?
You know, everybody wants it to be Kiso, but I really think that he'd be much better as Walt. I do. And not just because he could do the Sasquatch voice, but because I think that he brings the athleticism and the aging athleticism of Walt to that role. So, I'm sorry, you tried to bait me into it, but no. Kiso's Walt.
Fine, then fan cast it. Who's playing JMH?
I don't know. I'm the guy who wants Tom Cruise to play Wolverine. You don't ask me about casting stuff, okay? It's because Tom Cruise has crazy dead eyes, just like Wolverine. Like, tell me Tom Cruise with no camera tricks, slicing his way through the Hellfire Guards in the sewers all by himself in the dark and just going full Tom Cruise crazy on those guards. Tell me you don't just see this in your mind and go, oh yeah, I bet that'd be really fucking cool.
I can see it.
He's otherworldly preserved. He looks like he's 150 years old and yet doesn't look like he's 150 years old. Tom Cruise is perfect for this. No camera tricks. He's the right height. Huge Jack Man is not the only Wolverine out there. Scene change to Tamarind Island and the rest of Alpha Flight trying to figure out where Heather was heading because she tore out of there and didn't tell anyone.
Jeffries is wearing a jacket with a combined AF logo on the sleeve. We haven't seen that since the poor, doomed Alpha Jet was parked on blocks in a vacant lot 4 blocks away from 128 Laurier Drive back in Ottawa. Man, I miss that apartment.
I love that logo. Listeners, if you come see me at any of our summer events, I'll have a little patch of this logo and I will give it to you because I love spreading Alpha love.
And you know what? Let's see how long they stick around for.
I have been reading ahead, and yeah, it does appear more. Somehow I just totally missed it. I guess because I was reading it before I fell asleep over the course of like 2 months. As Box uses his tech to locate Heather's suit, Puck walks out thinking, I don't need your fancy instruments to track Heather, Box. I can sniff her from 50 miles away. No, Gross. He doesn't say that. I just figured out where she's gone, and I've got to reach her if I'm going to say I'm sorry in time to win her back from the one hero able and willing to give her the combat training I denied her and offer her the love of a lousy little dwarf.
Yeah, that's still happening.
It's uncomfortable to say, man. It does not feel good coming out of the mouth.
Nope.
Yes, listeners, Heather is flying towards another diminutive hairy Canadian, none other than Wolverine. Apparently, Logan had sent her a picture of himself in front of the X-Mansion, and she's been flying over Westchester looking for it from above, which is very silly to me.
Also, a great use of that violating airspace card that Alpha Flight gets. After 10 punches, they get a nuke sent at Winnipeg.
Wolverine and the X-Men are walking out to the car to enjoy a night at the opera when Heather, being new to this superhero life, flies at them full speed coming out of the sunset. For those of you who don't know, that's how you like attack people because they can't see you because you got the sun behind you. If they're trying to look at you, they get blinded. You know, it gives you a little, a few more seconds to launch the attack.
It's also the time of day when it's best to attack a dragon as per Reign of Fire and Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, that was such an amazing movie. The summer that movie came out, I was so broke I couldn't afford air conditioning to run in the apartment. So we scraped together $5 to go to the Dollar Theater and watch Reign of Fire because it was like 2.5 hours of air-conditioned bliss, and I didn't mind it. Soft spot in my heart, bro. Since Heather's powers are electromagnet-based, Magneto immediately feels something is going on and casually blasts her out of the sky.
Totally justified. That is exactly what Magneto should be doing in this situation. Magneto was right.
Yeah, I've got no notes for you here, Magneto. When somebody does that, you get blasted out of the sky. Heather just doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm sorry, that sounded mean. It's not that she doesn't know what she's doing. She just doesn't have the experience in doing this enough to call ahead.
Yeah, she doesn't have the superhero etiquette down yet.
Yeah, like, why didn't she call Wolverine? Like, she had to fly for hours to get there. And that has to be uncomfortable. Like, it can't be fun. Why don't you just call ahead and be like, hey, buddy, when can we meet up?
You know what this is?
A Mantlo thread. Actually, no, it's not a Mantlo thread.
No, it's
That's
not.
unfair.
It's not.
It's just a comic book thread. Like the X-Men, there's 10 years of X-Men continuity that could have been solved if they picked up a phone.
This is like how Buffy the Vampire Slayer, almost every episode wouldn't work in a cell phone age. I mean, it'd be very easy to quickly figure out where the Hellhound is based off of like cell towers and pings and all sorts of things. Or I don't know, just like
take this crossbow, shoot this air tag onto it. That way we'll always be able to find it, you know?
Yeah.
Or at least for a couple hours till it gets rid of it. But this isn't a Buffy the Vampire Slayer show, Tom. It's an Alpha Flight show. The X-Men manage to get Heather to the ground safely, and a very angry and claws out Wolverine takes her in his arms, saying, "Hand her over, rogue." She says,
"Down, boy. Y'all want her? Y'all can have her." Which is so bad, I can't do that.
No, that's amazing.
No, it
sounds like Applejack doing Rogue. It says, Wolverine replies, "That's right. She's mine. Any arguments?" While holding Heather.
It's very territorial, but doesn't seem to be ownership or even necessarily sexual, though it comes across that way a bit.
There is a lot of fucked up sexual subtext in this issue.
Wolverine loads Heather into the waiting car and they take off, leaving the X-Men to go inside and watch a telecast of the opera. I think one of the new themes is just stealing rides. Like, all the other X-Men were like, I guess we just go back inside now. Thanks, Logan. Jesus.
What, they don't have another car? We've seen the X
half
garage.
Half of them can fly. Like, what is happening?
And the other half can carry the other half. Like, I think that, they could have gotten everybody there. Wolverine's the heaviest one of all of them. And if he's not going, it's easy, you know?
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Storm's like, hey, this still counts as my turn for carrying him. I'm out of the order for a minute. This is my turn. Magneto being like, damn it.
Their whole appearance feels kind of like the X-Men appearance in the first Deadpool movie. They were totally there, but not in a way our hero interacts with or matter in any way.
That's a really good pull. That's a really good comp.
Yeah, they're just here to be on the cover.
Yep. What comes next is some major history stuff that benefits from a wee bit of scene setting. This comic was published in 1986. Wolverine has been with the X-Men for over 10 years, but is still very much a black box when it comes to his history, and has not become quite the overexposed cliche he is today and has been for about 35 years. If you can remember when Wolverine Origins came out and how people freaked out about filling in his backstory, well, this issue is the 1986 version of that. This was the most definitive Wolverine origin to be published until the Weapon X story in Marvel Comics Presents in 1991, and in fact, this directly sets that up.
Weapon X was in 1991, people. I know. We all think of it as like 1986. No. Totally 90s. When Heather comes to in the car, she asks Wolverine to teach her to fight because Heather is very relentless in learning how to fight these days. Wolverine says, "I swore I'd help you anywhere, anytime, with no questions asked, just like you helped me a long, long time ago. A long, long time ago." Isn't that the beginning of American Pie?
Oh, it's something like that. Scene change to 12-ish years ago when Heather and James were on a hunting honeymoon.
Okay, look, this is a big important story, but I gotta stop you at hunting honeymoon. How do you tell your blushing bride, "Honey, I want you to smell like 3 days of shitting in a bush when we consummate our marriage"?
Did you mean sitting?
I did not.
As Heather and James snowshoe across a desolate area, a naked and animalistic capital W Wolverine suddenly descends on them from above. James gets off a shot that should have stopped a man, but Wolverine's all up on James.
I told you there's a lot of fucked up sexual subtext.
Okay, you're the one that wrote that.
Heather rushes in and grabs James's fallen rifle and immediately shoots Wolverine from behind, likely saving James's life from the wild man they accidentally came across in a desolate area on their honeymoon. I've seen that movie.
The happy couple hauls the unconscious Wolverine to their cabin to radio for help.
James can't raise anyone on the radio, so like the patriotic Canadian patriot he is, he grabs his skis to go get help.
Heather says, You mean you're gonna leave me here alone? On our honeymoon? With that thing?
There's a lot of fucked up sexual subtext in this issue.
JMH says, That thing is some kind of man, Heather, and he's too valuable to Department H to just let die. Someone's gotta help, and since I'm the better skier, someone means me.
Crack. Hear that, listeners? That's the sound of Bill, quote, character assassin, end quote, Mantlo beginning his assault on James Jimmy Ladd, Captain Maple Leaf McDonald Hudson. Oh, we'll be coming back to this one, but this is the opening salvo right here.
Back in the present, Heather says to Logan, Jimmy's reasoning was so logical that you just had to give in, as always. But knowing he was right didn't do much to change your loathing for the Animan strapped down on your marital bed. Ew.
I've seen that movie.
Heather nurses the unconscious Logan through the night, and as a blizzard sets in the next day, Logan unconsciously extends his claws and severs his bonds.
This is apparently the first time Wolverine himself has seen his claws, and he freaks out and looks so hurt and helpless that Heather takes pity on him and gives him a hug. In the present, Wolverine says, "You held me like that all through the long night when you were supposed to be holding Jimmy. By the time Jimmy got back, you'd pulled me through." Man, there is a lot of fucked up sexual subtext in this issue.
Still in the present, Wolverine refers to his experience in the war, presumably World War II, and other memories from before this event, and says,
"Nobody ever hurt me like whoever it was that turned me inside out, laced my bones with unbreakable adamantium, and had the cute idea of giving me claws and letting me loose. If they let me loose, it's all a blank." I have a nit to pick. It was spelled adamantium with no N in the word balloon, and I refuse to believe that Rick Parker would have made an error like that.
There is a lot of sexual tension subtext. Is it subtext? Here, and Heather and Logan do an amazing job of explaining how Throuples work and how they end, at least in the case of their Throuple, in a Comics Code appropriate way.
The most important bit is Wolverine telling Heather that he left Department H when he realized she would always stay with James. So that's new.
That's not all that's new. Jesus Christ, what did JMH do? Did he drag his wife into the woods to find an escaped Wolverine? What the fuck just happened?
There's a lot of fucked up sexual subtext in this issue, Tom. But there's no time to dig into it because there's ninjas appearing out of the woods, and that leads us to Alpha Flight number 34. Cover date, May 1986, titled Honor. Writer is Bill Mantlo. Storyteller is Sal Buscema. Finisher is Jerry Taliok. Letterer is Janice Chiang. Hey, haven't seen Janice in a while. Hope you can meet our exacting standards here, Janice. Colorer is Bob Sharon. Editor is Carl Potts. Editor-in-chiefer is Jim Shooter. Listeners, that's what it says on the page. I wonder if this is our very last silly Marvel name in the credits.
One can only hope. The aforementioned ninjas are on the cover in the foreground, swarming up towards Wolverine and Vindicator, who are fighting them off. It's a Magnolia cover and it's good, but I can't help but notice Heather doesn't have her visor and just looks like a sexy JMH in the costume.
I'm sorry, I think you mean JMH, because the sexy is superfluous, friend.
Which is something Chris wrote that I just read, and this is another one of those times I realize I need to edit these scripts more.
Also, the great Alpha Flight community has brought to my attention how frequently artists mess up the maple leaf on the costume, and I gotta say, this is the first time it has been painfully obvious to me so far. It's just kind of spiky in there. Also, Heather's costume is slightly different than any version we have seen on JMH or Delphine Courtney. Heather's has the red stripe going down her right side, but the left leg is all white with just the flag and her sleeve being red. JMH initially had red down both legs and then transitioned to white down both legs.
Thanks for covering the important parts for the listeners, bruv.
It's what we're here for. Besides, I've got to come up with our next Alpha Flight costumes, though I've seen some pretty good looking Vindicator costumes out there.
Back to the aforementioned foreground ninjas. They are here in the service of Yuriko Oyama, better known by her supervillain name Lady Deathstrike, a major enough Wolverine villain to have significant screen time in X2 X-Men United. Her whole deal is that she's the daughter of the guy who invented the process of bonding adamantium to bone, and she wants to reclaim Wolverine's adamantium because of honor reasons. So, Chris, a little bit of a diversion, but how much do you know about post-World War II Japan and the residual fascist elements in Japanese society?
Most of what I know comes from The Wind Also Rises, so I'm going to say nothing.
Cool. I'm not going to go really far into it because this ain't that kind of podcast. If you are interested in that, there are a number of Behind the Bastard episodes that really dig into this quite well, especially the LDP, one of the lead parties, the lead party in Japan, and its connections back to, well, that. Fascism, the empire. Shinzo Abe, the recently assassinated former prime minister, was the grandson of one of the architects of the Japanese empire in World War II. Yeah, it goes deep. However, Lady Deathstrike's father, Lord Darkwind, which is just a terrible name. He was a kamikaze pilot whose plane did not explode and thus felt dishonored. And look, there's a lot of stereotyping Japanese stuff going on here. However, there was a very strong current of trying to restore the empire and reclaim the country's honor from certain folks. And I'm guessing, and this is just a real guess on my part, but I'm guessing Bill Mantlo is pulling a lot of that information from the example of Yukio Mishima, who was one of the leading writers in Japan after World War II, was obsessed with restoring the empire and attempted a coup in, I believe, 1969, 1970. It mostly did the coup because another Japanese writer won the Nobel Prize, which confirmed for Mishima that he wouldn't have a chance at it because the Nobel Prize doesn't go outside of Europe very often. So he does this coup and takes over a military base with some of his followers. He basically had built a cult around himself and attempted to get the military to rise up. And instead, all the commanders of the base laughed at him. And after kind of futzing around for a few hours and knowing that this wasn't going to work, had his lover cut his head off, or attempt to anyways.
It's a lot harder to cut a person's head off. Like, you got to know what you're doing. You can't just do that. You can't ask a girlfriend to do that.
Mishima thought it'd be easier than it was, and kind of sucks when you're on the receiving end of that. So anyway, my guess is Mishima is a big enough name. His books are still read. I've read a number of his books. They're good. I actually don't think they're great, but they are quite good. I'm guessing that's Mantlo's point of contact on this, is the example of Mishima, or whoever created Lady Deathstrike, Lord Darkwind. I think that was probably where they were pulling some of this information from, which also informs how stereotyped it is, because in a lot of respects, what Mishima was doing was kind of do a cosplay of what he thought the empire was.
Just collecting my thoughts. I don't know how to respond to that. Thank you for the gift of knowledge, my friend.
Having said all that, she is a pretty standard samurai lady with a very fancy sword. We'll get into what the sword is in a minute.
Wolverine tries to trick Heather into running away to safety. Puck flies the Omnijet to Westchester to try to do this solo. At least this time it gets ganked by a non-flyer, I suppose, since Heather doesn't need it now. And in doing so, Puck pulls a North Star and hits Wolverine in the back of the head with the Omnijet.
We previously saw Lady Deathstrike's sword hold up against Wolverine's claws. She says that it's been electromagnetically tempered, another one of her father's inventions, so it can stand up to adamantium, which is cool and all until she breaks it on Heather's battle armor. And yeah, that's it. Like literally, shows off how powerful the force fields are, but that's the end of the fight.
Yuriko's first appearance was in a story in Daredevil number 196 to 200, but she was still the daughter of the bad guy then, not a villain in her own right. And now we see her as a standard samurai lady. And the very next month, Uncanny X-Men number 205 is published with Lady Deathstrike as a villain, and she is totally different next month. The next issue, when you're like, oh, Wolverine fought this lady, let's see what's going on in X-Men. She's different.
Not only is she different, she's the classic Lady Deathstrike. When you think Lady Deathstrike, you think of
cyborg and weird boobs.
Yes. And very hands that are impossible to eat anything with because they are entirely too long talons.
Edwina Scissorhands.
It's wild looking, but literally from one issue to the next.
Yeah, that's why I included that in there for you to be able to read it, because it's wild.
A Spiral from Mojo World show it is such a different register of comic from what that Alpha Flight issue was doing to what this X-Men issue is doing. Also reflected very heavily in the art.
That X-Men issue is drawn by Barry Windsor Smith, and it looks beautiful and ugly at the same time. It's serious art for comic books and tells a story that feels much more sophisticated than what we get here from Sal Buscema. I have not been impressed with his art on these issues of Alpha Flight. It's felt very, I don't know how to put this. It feels like art no one cares about because no one expects this book to survive. And honestly, that's what these first 6 or so Mantlo issues feel like. They feel like no one cares about it. I don't know if that's a hangover from Byrne and our residual affection for them, but goddamn, have the last few issues felt like watching your kids being supervised by Miss Hannigan from Annie.
The Alpha Flight art for Lady Deathstrike looks like something for kids, and the Barry Windsor Smith art looks like it's for 20-year-olds smoking pot in their mom's basement, but in the good way.
Oh, yeah. The good ones of those, not the bad ones of those that exist now.
These two issues do not look remotely like they were released in the same decade, much less at the same time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, not really loving Buscema's art, but that's separate from like what the art is supposed to do for the kind of story it's supposed to be telling. It's really that shift in storytelling, how things are being handled, that makes the art so much more noticeable and jarring. And I think that's also coloring our reaction to a little bit. But before we move off of this, compare and contrast of art styles, just to mention, in that Uncanny X-Men issue, we have a guest appearance from Katie Power, Energizer from Power Pack. Little did I know that I would open up this issue, and I didn't know I was going to be in a Rick and Jeff crossover episode. I didn't, but here we are.
Every time the X-Men are like, hey, we got these totally cute Power Pack kids, who should we put them with? They're like, all right, we're going to put them with Sabretooth, and we're going to put them with Wolverine. That's clearly the natural pair up for these innocent, naive kids.
At least it's not Marina again.
Well, for those of you who are interested, you can listen to a recent Rick and Jeff episode to hear a little blip from us. The Omnijet Puck Flies into Wolverine also has the combined AF logo from the old Omnijet, so that's nice to see. Like, I missed that detail when I speed read the first 2 volumes of Alpha Flight. Oh Lord, like a year and a half ago now.
We've been doing this for over a year now, buddy.
And a good year it has been, buddy.
That it has, buddy.
Okay. New theme for Alpha Flight. Friendship.
With Lady Deathstrike defeated by Heather coming back to the fight and saving both Puck and Wolverine, she says to them, well, gentlemen, you've seen what Vindicator can do. Do you still want to offer me your protection?
And Feeney. The issue ends with Heather staring down 2 diminutive hirsute Canadian men, dripping with sweat from their battle.
I've seen that movie. Oh, and the only other important thing to note is that our new role model and hero, the Doug, arrived at Tamarind Island holding a very ill Snowbird and asking for Alpha Flight's help.
Also ending is the awkward transition phase for Alpha Flight, as Bill Mantlo is going to start finding his footing after this. We're going to be entering a period of a stable artist for the next 10 issues, and that's going to really help set the tone because they've got someone who can bring some stability to this, and it seems like Bill remembers how to write comics. Tom, do you remember when we did the ROM crossover very early in our show? And I said, you know what? I actually really am enjoying this Bill Mantlo written comic book. That Mantlo starts showing up in the next issues. But look at all this stuff that just happened during this weird 6-month period where I don't know if Bill was just on a bender and just sending stuff in and Shooter was too coked up to say no. I don't know. But the last 6 issues have been real rough, buddy, haven't they?
Oh, very much so. And even one of the vendors at C2E2 commented on that overall, he really enjoyed Mantlo's work, especially ROM, all that. But for whatever reason, on Alpha Flight, it just went out the window. Like it just didn't work for whatever the reasons were. Whether it was he just didn't have a good feel for the characters yet, in which case, why would you give him the series? He was just trying some things out, or he was just in a dark place. I don't know.
For what we have read so far, it feels like he has a weird handling on the characters and is very much trying to get the characters to force them where he wants them to be. And what's going to be coming is a lot of him bringing in his own new characters and helping to fill out the cast around it. And that is where he feels a bit more comfortable when he strips out most of the familiar Alphans that we have come to know. And there's a period of time where the Avengers are just Captain America, Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch, and it's called Cap's Kooky Quartet. And I'm trying to find a way for the 3 Alphans that stick around, because it's going to be Heather, Sasquatch, and Box as the real Alphans who stick through for a long time. And then there's these other Mantlos around them that are both Alphan members and Beta Flight members, because Beta Flight's going to be coming back as well. Mantlo really figures out what he's doing and does it with what he's got. It's just his new created characters, and they don't stick quite the same way. But then again, how many people outside of like the Alpha nerds that you know about ROM? You know what I mean? Like Mantlo operates in that realm of, if you know it, you know it.
Yeah, you've probably read a Bill Mantlo without even knowing it. Yeah.
Oh, that was one of those names before I really, as an adult, kind of paid attention to writers and creators and then started figuring out how this all fits together. Bill Mantlo was one of those names that I remembered as, he writes comic books. Because I've read it on many comic books, Speaking of vendors at C2E2, I want to give a great big thank you to the comic shop owners from C2E2 who graciously offered to put out flyers for the show in their physical stores. They were all a delight to talk to, and I learned something about Alpha Flight from each of them. So thank yous to Legends Comics and Games in Fresno, California. He's a real big Alpha fan. That was a fun convo.
Graham Cracker Comics in the Chicagoland area, which was one of the first comic shops I ever shopped at. Their downtown location off of, I think, Madison Avenue. That said, they have 11 locations or so, including the totally real place of Normal, Illinois. You know, y'all, as fake as Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan probably sounds to Americans, I'm sure Normal, Illinois sounds very fake to our numerous Canadian listeners, especially under the current climate.
Dark Tower Comics and Collectibles in Chicago and Champaign, go Illini. There were also shops in Connecticut, Nevada, Alabama, and Vancouver, but I didn't get their cards because, damn it, Jim, I'm a podcaster, not an influencer.
I'd also like to give a shout out to my local shop, First Aid Comics. They have 2 locations, one here in Hyde Park, the other on Taylor Street in Little Italy, just, still technically the south side of the city because we haven't hit State Street yet. James Nurse, who owns First Aid, is a fantastic person. Before they were in their current location, they were on the second floor of a stretch of retail along 53rd Street in my neighborhood. And it was one of those old buildings with like the steep stairs. And I would pull my double stroller backwards up the stairs with my 2 boys in it to go get comics, pick up my my pull list from James. And he was very amused at like hearing the clank, clank, clank as we're going up the stairs. And his other patrons were horrified at what I was doing. He's now in a street level shop that's actually gotten quite big. And yeah, it's been awesome watching his shop grow.
And shout out to my home comic shop, Fantasy Books Incorporated in Belleville, Illinois. Ashley's been great to work with. They've had our flyers for months now, and I love going in there. They have a whole kids section, and the staff there is really great. And they'll interview the kids and talk to them and figure out what the kid is interested in and what level they're looking at. It is a comic shop that feels like the comic shop, the stinky comic shop that I went to as a kid, but dressed up enough to be family friendly. And it's wonderful. They have the biggest wall of fresh monthly comics that I have ever seen put on display. It's great. I love that place.
We're sure all these shop owners know every one of their customers who is a secret Alpha Flight fan because, well, we can smell our own. We don't pay for any advertising for this show, so word of mouth from listeners to fellow comic book fans is how our show grows. We would consider it a personal favor if you made a point to mention the show to one friend this week, or maybe join our Patreon where you can kick a beer our way for the hours of entertainment. Hours. Seriously. Oof. At the very, very least, take a moment to rate and review us on whatever platform you listen to our show on. We'd really appreciate it.
You know who does pay for advertising? The Excelsior Embroidery Company, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Roxxon Energy Corporation. This week, we are featuring the iconic X-Men logo with a variety of pride flags in the background. Available as a patch, towel, or hat, this is a great addition to your summer wardrobe. All patches are certified cadmium-free in the state of Vermont in accordance with the ruling of the District of Vermont affecting all Roxxon products. If you suspect that you or a loved one has been exposed to cadmium from exposure to the RSV 2000 model executive level Sexbot or any of the over 10,000 products that make up the Roxxon family, you may be entitled to compensation. Dial Sexbot to 081984 to learn more. That's SEXBOT to 081984 to know more. See this patch and hundreds more designs by going to excelsiorembroidery.etsy.com. When company's coming over, bring out the good towels. Excelsior!
Why Not is recorded in Chicago, Illinois, and deep beneath stately Baker Manor in a fashionable neighborhood outside St. Louis. It is written by Chris Baker and edited by Tom Flynn, with animal noises provided by a chunk named Teeny and a beautiful slab of beef named Alden. New episodes are available every other Monday at www.thewhynotpod.com and on most podcast platforms. You can email us your questions and comments at whynotapod@gmail.com. That's whynotehpod@gmail.com. Or find us online on Blue Sky and Instagram.
Join us next time as we bring back everyone's favorite Canadian doctor, Dr. Michael fucking Two Youngmen, and his daughter Talisman and Snowbird, and we get all things mystical and a much bigger role for the Doug.
Catch you on the flip side.
Well, I'm going to do this with a cat on my lap. Teeny, say hello to the fans.
We're doing this live!
Fuck it, we'll do it live. Thanks, Bill.